Well, good morning. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday morning. I'm excited about today's show. We have a very interesting guest. John Hiller was a pitcher who spent his entire career with the Detroit Tigers. He had success as a starting pitcher and even more as a reliever. He was part of a Tigers World Championship team and also appeared in the All-Star game. But there's a lot more to his story, and we'll find out more about it in just coming up right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Now, here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, to start out, we need full disclosure here. I've been a Detroit Tiger fan my entire life. I know that some of you vividly remember that John Hiller was an outstanding pitcher with the Tigers from 1965 to 1980. But I also know that some of you came along later and may not be as familiar with his career. So this morning I want to spend some time talking about those years with the Tigers. Also want to talk with John about a major challenge he had to overcome early in his career, get his take on the current Detroit Tigers, and hopefully get some insights into the game from a pitcher's perspective, see if we can bring up some memories from John's past. John, nice to have you with us.
All right, good morning, Don. Thank you.
You know, let's give him a little history. First of all, you grew up in Ontario, Canada. What path brought you to the Detroit Tigers?
Oh my goodness. Well, it is. I guess it's not much difference in the States here. As a young kid, summertime, wintertime, I played hockey, played soccer, played lacrosse, but needed something to do in the summer. So most of my mates on the street, we got together and joined baseball. About 8 years old, like a lot of the kids here in the States, and just played summer ball. I don't think I excelled at all in baseball. I was a hockey nut. I wanted to play pro hockey like most Canadian kids.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I developed a little bit. I could always throw strikes. And it's quite a story. A lot of people maybe didn't even know about it throughout the Tiger organization. I was 17 years old, and a scout was traveling from Detroit to Montreal, Canada, to see a young pitcher. And we had just put lights up in our ballpark for the first time, and he saw these lights, decided it was time to take a little break, a rest, and a little inquisitive. He pulled over, and I was pitching a ball game. He saw me strike out the side, and he asked somebody beside him, how many strikeouts does this young fella have? And the lady told him, well, I don't know exactly, but he struck out every one. And anyways, it so happened I struck out 22 in 7 innings. The catcher dropped the ball once, and he approached me later on and asked me if I ever thought about playing professional baseball, and I sort of laughed, giggled a little bit, didn't take it serious. And anyways, he took my number and he showed up a year and a half later. I was not of age to be approached then, and
Okay.
He got in touch with me, offered me a contract for $400 a month, and I said goodbye high school and left.
Wow.
That was about it.
That was it. And you arrived with the Tigers about 1965, although you didn't start playing that much then, I don't believe. Who was the manager at that time?
Oh, Charlie Dressen.
Oh, yeah.
And I happened to know him a little bit. He was managing the AAA team in Toronto. And
Okay.
I had a tryout. Didn't go too well. He told me not to throw away my hockey skates. And he was the manager at the time. And I got called up from AA ball in '65, as they do at the end of the year. And only stayed a couple weeks. Got a little taste of it. And then I joined the team little in '66 and actually stayed most of '67 and then on through the rest of my career.
Now, you were still young, but you were part of that Tigers World Championship team in 1968.
Yes.
You had some great guys you were playing with, like Denny McLain, or great pitchers.
Yes. Yeah.
31 wins. That had to be kind of amazing to be around.
It was. It was a fun year. That'll never happen again with a
No.
5-man rotation and such. And he just put it all together. Denny, that year pretty much was as good as he had to be. He'd win 2-1, 7-6, 10-9. And those are the days when they completed the ball games.
Right.
Mickey Lolich pitched over 300 innings, I think, 3 years in a row. And we had Mickey and Denny McLain, Earl Wilson, and an ex-quarterback from Ohio State, Joe Sparma. And that was our starting rotation. I was a spot starter along with my roommate, Pat Dobson, and relief pitching, long relief, short relief, starting every once in a while. And there were virtually no saves back before 1971, 72.
Right. I think Mayo Smith was the manager.
Correct,
during
yeah.
the year. What kind of a guy was he to play for?
I'd say he was a good guy. He wasn't well known. He did tried to keep a bunch of guys that we had some loose cannons on our team. Maybe I was a little wild when I was young, and he just had the knack of keeping us together. We had pretty set lineup. He put the same team out almost every day, and set 4-man rotation and a bullpen that just did what they had to do. So, you know, in those days, teams went through their careers with the same ball team so much. And there was 17 of us had come through the organization, through the minor league. So even we approached the major leagues, we knew each other a little, and it was a lot more of a comfort zone.
Yeah. You know, John, you had a good season in 1970, and then you had a heart attack. And this was a serious heart attack, wasn't it? This was not just a mild attack.
No, it was. I was in Duluth, Minnesota, living at the time. I just got back from a snowmobile trip, and I was 27 years old, woke up, I had 3 heart attacks that morning,
Wow.
really not knowing what they were at that age. I'd had some pneumonia problems in '66 and thought maybe there was a reoccurrence of that. And next thing you know, I ended up in coronary care unit and had to call the Tigers and tell them I wasn't making it to spring training. And they thought I was joking.
Yeah.
They said, "What do you mean you've had a heart
27
attack? You
years
didn't
old,
have a
huh?
heart attack."
Yeah.
So I did. I missed that year and a half, went through a radical surgery, and it worked, and had quite a difficult time getting back because of the coronary problems. But
Did you think that maybe you wouldn't get back to baseball?
well, I guess in the back of my mind, Don, but I was 27, no education, no skill, and so there was a drive there that I just always felt that I had a chance. I just needed the opportunity. And I remember my father, who was a very, I won't say simple man, I mean, he just said things simply. A grade 8 education, hard worker, grew up in Saskatchewan, and he said to me one day, he says, "John, you're going to come back and you're going to be better than ever." And I thought that I would get back. I just needed the opportunity.
And the Tigers were probably a little skeptical themselves, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Chuck Hughes had died the year before at Tiger Stadium playing football, and they didn't want a reoccurrence of that. So I had a very difficult time. I went to a lot of cardiologists in the state of Michigan, and they just were afraid to endorse me to put me back in the field. And thank goodness our team physician, Dr. Livingood, had some connections, and he got me an appointment with President Johnson's doctor down in Atlanta, Dr. Willard Hurst. Spent a day with him, and he sort of winked at me and said, "Give me a couple weeks, you'll be playing again." So.
That's great. And it turns out your father was right, and we'll find out more about that in just a minute. Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. Talking this morning with John Hiller, former pitcher for the Detroit Tigers. During the break, the word umpire came up. Did you ever have any bad experiences with umpires?
No, I didn't. I was very fortunate. And I'm not sure, you know, back then, it was a little different baseball back then. It was just, it's hard to explain, but the umpires tested you early. And I remember Al Kaline coming to me and saying, you know, when your first time you go to the mound, these umpires, they're not going to, it might be right down the middle, they're going to call it a ball. They want to see your reaction. So from day one, I didn't show any emotion out there as far as a good call, bad call with an umpire. So I think over my career, I probably got the benefit of some bad calls going my way more than the other way. So yeah, I didn't show much emotion out there one way or another, and I never ever tried to show an umpire out.
We were talking before the break about coming back from the heart attack. You really had some great years in like 73 and 74. You were a starter, a reliever, kind of, how did that transition go?
Well, I never was a set starter early in my career. You know, I think about John Smoltz. I coached him when I was coaching in the minor leagues, but he went and was a fabulous starter. Then he had some arm trouble and went to be a relief pitcher. But I did both, a little of everything. And so mostly in the 70s, I became more of a closer, and every once in a while, manager would come to me and say, "We need a starter, do you mind starting?" And I just always enjoyed playing the game. And, I think I preferred starting, Don, because every day I went to the ballpark, I knew I had a chance of getting in. Right. And nowadays, being an every 5th day starter, I don't know what I do for 4 days in between, but I enjoyed the fact that I had a chance of getting in the ball game every day.
You had a record for a while, of an American League record of 17 relief wins, which is pretty unusual for a relief pitcher to get wins. Saves, yes, but how did that come about?
Well, a lot of it, you know, you didn't mention the bad end. I had 14 losses out of the bullpen. I had 20 31 decisions in the bullpen. None of those were starting decisions, and I think that's a record that won't be broken. Some of it was good. I used to come in maybe in the 7th inning, a lot of times with men on base, and we didn't have a very good team that year. And sometimes I blew a lead, sometimes I'd go in and pitch a couple innings and the team would get a run and I'd get a victory. But when you have 14 losses, what happened at the end, the American League record was 18. 17 for the American League. I mean, the Major League record itself was 18. So Ralph Houk, I think I only had about 8 losses. And Ralph Houk came to me and said, when we get a tie ball game late in the game, I'm going to put you in, give you a chance maybe to make a new Major League record. Well, it backfired. I ended up getting more losses. So, but that's why I got so many decisions.
Let's just take a break for a second and talk about the Tigers this year and what's happening. Now, as I said at the beginning, I'm a real Tiger fan. I think most fans look forward to a big year. What went wrong with the Tigers this year from what you've seen?
I think it started last year. I really, when they acquired Nathan as being our closer, he had a great career, but at 39 years old, to be our closer, I really questioned that move. And then this year they were expecting him again. He did come down with some more arm trouble. Rondon hurt himself, kid that throws over 100 miles an hour, and he didn't start the season. You started with Victor on the disabled list. I mean, everybody has injuries, but when you lose key players, and then we've been there 4 years in a row, and things worked. This year, nothing's really working. We have a good pitch ball game. We don't get runs. We go out there and get a whole bunch of runs. We don't have a well-pitched game. So I just think they're just going through that, and I don't see them rebounding. I mean, the Tiger fans might not like me to say that, but I just don't see them rebounding and coming back.
You know, I think as a fan, you got to have somebody to blame. That's just the way the game works. And this year, I'm blaming Dave Dombrowski. And he's been a great guy for the Tigers.
He's been a wonderful guy.
But you know, we just don't have the pitching. You know, we haven't had it. You know, it just hasn't worked out. Tell me, a guy like Shane Green. Green started out gangbusters, first 3 games. Since then, it's a disaster. What happens to a pitcher that
well,
makes that
I think
happen?
his location. You know, he's throwing a ball maybe 90, 91 tops as far as velocity, and he needs to keep the ball down. He throws a sinker and he gets a lot of ground balls. I watched him pitch last night. Some of his pitches were good, but then he started getting the ball up again. And that ball 90 miles an hour up in the middle of the plate, that was Sanchez last night, 2 nights ago. Sanchez, the same thing. He's getting the ball up in the middle of the plate. And you can't pitch there. These hitters nowadays, they're just too good. So being a sinker ball pitcher like Green is, he has to keep the ball very low, and he's got to be in and out with it. And he's just not making, you know, good pitches anymore.
Okay. We have to take one more break.
Okay.
We'll be back with more with John Hiller in just 2 minutes. Talking with former Detroit Tiger pitcher John Hiller. John, we were talking during the break again about salaries. Quite a difference from when you were playing the game.
Just a little, Don. I think the year we won the World Series, my base salary was $6,500, and we got $10 per diem. We did make $8,000 for winning the World Series. You know, last year they made $500,000 each for winning it, and you know, but the price of the tickets. I've got my stub from my World Series ticket. It was $12 for a box seat. So and you know, everybody will knock the salaries, and I do too. It's just gotten to a ridiculous. But all sports and all facets of life is the salaries are just getting outrageous, and I don't see where it's going to start. Stop rather. It's unbelievable.
Do you think it's changing the game?
Well, yes, definitely. That's what's made it go to 5-man rotation. That's made it go to pitch count. Everybody's worried about their multi-million-dollar player getting hurt, and the agents, you know, every year their players in the big leagues, they get bonuses and they make money, so they try to protect them and don't want them to pitch extra number of days or extra number of innings in a year. So money's changed the game totally. And I think the players, you know, and I don't want to be the old guy that, well, when we did it and how we did it our way, but we didn't take the game as serious, or we didn't take ourselves as serious. You're out there, I used to kid, I said the people in the stands are making more money than we are. And now, of course, it's a different way, but they take themselves too serious. pounding on their chest when they make an out or get a hit, and taking curtain calls. And the game has changed, and the way the players approach the game, I think, has totally changed.
Did you even have pitch counts back when?
Oh, of course not. And when I went to be a pitching coach, they were just starting, and I'd put in a false number at the end of my report just because I was supposed to, but I always felt I could, the hitters are going to tell me when I'm getting tired, they're going to start hitting the ball hard. And no, I was never in a favor of pitch counts.
Talking about pitching, Victor Martinez said something similar to what I'm going to say. I'm not even paraphrasing, but that basically when you're facing a good pitcher, you're just looking for him to make a mistake. Does that? I
think so, yeah. Al Kaline used to tell me he felt that he was going to get one pitch to hit at each at-bat. Now, sometimes that's new, but overall, throughout the year, he's going to get one pitch to hit, and just be ready for that pitch and look for it. Victor is so intent, and it seems like he will put the ball in play most of the times, and he's looking for that one location. I think the good hitters look location, inside, outside, maybe up and down, where your average hitters are looking, maybe guessing fastball, guessing curveball, but your good hitters are going to guess location. How's he going to try and get me out?
So it's kind of a cat and mouse game.
It is. It is. You'll see pitchers that throw 89, 90 miles an hour fastball, but their location is so good, and they know how to set up a hitter and know how to pitch opposite. If your hitter's expecting a fastball and you're throwing an off speed, you're going to get him out. So it's just really trying to outthink that hitter.
You had 87 wins, 125 saves, career ERA of 2.83, which is very good. What was the key to your success?
I don't think I was ever afraid of losing. I used to, when I was coaching, I tell these kids, they come out of high school, come out of their area, they've maybe never lost a ball game or never been hit hard. And I just always said, you can't be afraid. I never was a nibbler, get 2 strikes and then try and nibble and nibble and nibble. I came after the hitter. Eddie Matthews, great Hall of Famer, he joined us in '67, I believe. He said something one day to somebody, and he said, Hiller has more heart than he has talent. And maybe that was true. I went out there, gave it all I had, but I was not afraid of losing. And so I challenged the hitters maybe a little more than what some guys do nowadays. I did have real good control in and out, and I had an average fastball, very average curveball, but I did end up with above average changeup late in my career, and in a way that turned it around.
That throwing strikes is important. Every time we get a reliever come in the 9th and walk the leadoff batter.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I know.
Up the wall.
I know.
Who was the toughest batter you ever faced?
I've got 2, George Brett and Rod Carew, those 2. Left-handed hitters that could go out and hit. I'm a left-handed, of course, but they could go out and smack the ball the other way, or they could turn on it inside. So those 2 gave me fits. And Lou Piniella was a right-hander that just sort of made a career on hitting left-handers. And those 3 gave me a lot of trouble.
Other than yourself, who was the greatest pitcher that you think you saw?
Bob Gibson. In my era, I would believe so. Yeah, he was just phenomenal. The year we went in the World Series with him, I think his ERA was 1.28 for a starter. That's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. So your word is don't get our hopes up for this year, huh?
I wouldn't. I mean, I'm a true fan. I watch or listen, got the radio on in the nice weather when on the porch, but and we could turn it around. They've got the wild card now. They've got getting like hockey. Everybody's
Almost
in the playoffs now, but I mean, I still say maybe have a chance, but I wouldn't put any money on it, though.
No. I wish we had another half hour to talk, but we don't. Thanks very much for coming in this morning.
Okay, I appreciate it. I enjoyed it very much, Don. Thank you.
I'll be back with a few other comments for you after we take this break. Well, today is a day for sharing memories about baseball, so I'd like to add a few more that point out how some things have changed. Not so much with the game, but how we got to follow it, which was very different when I was a kid, and that's a long time ago. I started out as a Major League Baseball fan in the late 1940s and early 50s. Back then, our only real connection to the game was radio, and the voice of those broadcasts was Harry Heilmann. Some fans only remember Heilmann for his radio years, since his baseball career ran from 1914 to 1932. But the fact is, he was a great player for 17 years, most of them with Detroit. On the air, he was popular for his humor, storytelling skills, and knowledge of the game. and his broadcasts were heard throughout Michigan. Heilman had a connection with his audience like Ernie Harwell would have in the years to follow. While it couldn't bring the game into your home like television eventually would, there was a special kind of intimacy with following the game on radio, as many people did. I spent many hours listening to Harry Heilman talking about the pitching exploits of Virgil Fire Trucks, Fred Hutchinson, and Hal Newhouser, the behind-the-plate skills of Bob Swift and Frank House. There were some great infielders like George Kell and Johnny LaPon, while the guys roaming the outfield were Vic Wertz, Johnny Groth, and Hoot Evers. As we began to move into the television age, it was still not easy to follow your home team on the TV screen. Baseball broadcasts for a number of years were limited to the game of the week, which featured different teams each Saturday afternoon. I remember that one of the regular color commentators on those broadcasts was Dizzy Trout, another former Detroit Tiger and a real character. Today, of course, it's very different. If you're a Tiger fan, every game is available on television, and television is also very different from those early years. I can remember watching the Saturday afternoon game of the week on my 17-inch RCA TV. I thought it was great back then, but it doesn't hold a candle to what we have today. With HD TV and sets with 55 and 60-inch screens, now it's almost like we have the players and the managers and the coaches right in our living room, not only in living color, but almost life-size. I love what we have today, but occasionally I can't help but think back to those days when I was a kid, alone in my room, listening to Harry Heilman talking about some great Detroit Tigers from the past. We didn't have a picture to watch, but he could paint a picture in our minds that was pretty special. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Just about time to wrap it up for another Sunday morning. Before we go, I want to remind you that our show is also available on the internet. Just go to uppermichigansource.com and you'll find the link on the homepage. I'm also interested in hearing any thoughts you may want to share with us. Our email address is theryanreport@chesstv.com. I really appreciate John Hiller joining us this morning. As I said when we started, I've been a Tigers fan for a long time. It was great to get some insights into baseball from someone who has successfully played the game at the highest level. Today's show is anxious to get started, so we'll get out of their way. Have a great day and join us next Sunday morning.